So, the case we're going to examine is the case of the Menendez Brothers, which I was definitely not around when all this unfolded, so I don't necessarily know the full impact it had, but from doing a lot of reading and research, I can tell it was pretty major. And in saying that, it happened in 1989 in Beverly Hills when two brothers, Eric and Lyle Menendez, stormed into their home and shot their parents. So yeah, but the thing that made this case so interesting is that in court, they allege their father had physically, mentally, and sexually abused them. So, I mean, you'd probably think at first it's pretty clear cut that they murdered their parents and then that's it, they're guilty and sentenced to death. But it did not work out like that in court at all. So, going to the events, it was a hot night in Beverly Hills, which is weird for me to say because I live in Australia and it's winter here in August. But yeah, it was August 20th. The parents were fighting with the brothers that night about going out. The brothers wanted to go somewhere and the parents didn't let them, which is like literally every teenage and parent fight. It's nothing out of the ordinary. Then their parents went into the den of their house, and I had to search this up because I didn't know what it was, so definitions on the screen. So yeah, it's more of a rich people thing, I think, but yeah. So the parents, the brothers, got their pre-purchased, which is a keyword, guns, and then shot their parents to death because they said in self-defense, because they thought that their parents were about to kill them, you know, going into the den and then figuring out how to kill them. So that's what they thought in their thinking. And I think the most heinous thing about this crime is that their mum, unlike their dad, was still alive after they shot her. So they shot the dad point blank. The mum was still alive. She was on the floor, she was scrambling, moaning, she was in pain. And then after they saw this, one of the brothers, I think it was Lyle, went outside, reloaded his gun, came back, and then shot the mum in the face, close range. So that's, you know, it's obviously pure evil right there. Their mum, you know, obviously saw the sons murdering her, which is just horrible. I can't even, comprehend. So, following the events, the brothers expected the police to turn up because of the loud gunshots. They thought, you know, someone would call the police, but no one did. So then they decided to create an alibi and then also dispose of their guns. So they went to the movies, bought tickets, did a bunch of stuff to conceal the fact that they were never there. And to conceal the fact that they were there. And after this, they came home, called the police. Lyle was crying hysterically on the phone, acting like he had no idea of what happened.
I have a hysterical person on. We're trying to get clean further. Other units are funny. Is the person still there?
What happened? We have units around. What happened? Who shot who?
I don't hear anything. I just came home.
You came home and found who shot?
Mom and Dad. You know if they're still in the house, the people that did the shooting. Get away from them.
Okay. Hey, let me talk to Eric. Who is the person that was shot?
My mom and my dad.
Your mom and dad?
My mom and my dad.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, we're on our way over there with the ambulance.
Okay, I gotta go.
Okay.
Eric was curled up on the front lawn crying, and I read somewhere that he was also hitting his head against a tree, which is a pretty strange mourning ritual, I guess. But, you know, they were so distraught, I guess, you know, that the normal gun residue testing was not applied, which would have convicted them instantly, which is very frustrating, I think, to a lot of people when they look back at the case. I mean, these guys spent like 6 months or something doing whatever they wanted. No one had known that they'd killed their parents for about 6 months. So they could have been convicted right there on the spot if the normal procedures had been done, but it was not done because they were mourning. Whether this was planned or not by the brothers, I don't know. Probably not, maybe. I'm not sure. But, I mean, they got away with it. So, yeah. And like I said, throughout the months, they were free. They spent a lot of money. Like, I'm going to put up a photo right now. This is how much money they spent in like 6 months, which is insane. But what I find super interesting, you can see from the photo, is that Eric spent nowhere near as much money as Lyle. And when I was watching the Law and Order episode of this crime, it clearly indicated that Eric was not really the type to spend money, especially on more materialistic things. Like, he just didn't really seem to care much as Lyle did. And, you know, there was a scene where I guess Eric bought a new watch because his brother had kind of convinced him. He clearly didn't really care about buying a new watch, but his brother, you know, made him because he thought that he needed it. But, you know, in saying that, you know, Eric bought a Jeep. His brother bought a Porsche and a ton of nice cars. So, you know, suspicions began to arise because of the money spending. And the LAPD, as they're called, began to speculate the brothers had something to do with the murders. I don't think they would have thought that the brothers had been the ones to storm into the den and shoot their parents, because it just seemed too gruesome for something that they would do. But I guess they kind of thought that maybe they hired people to do it, which, you know, makes sense. Yeah, but from the readings and the documentaries I've been watching, I also saw that Eric was really struggling. Like, he wasn't eating, lost a ton of weight, and he was crying a lot. So he was obviously suffering a lot of guilt. But yeah, I mean, it did seem like Eric genuinely regretted it to some extent, and he was really struggling. And because he was really struggling, he actually visited this therapist named Dr. Jerome Oziel, which, remember that name, it's very important. And he confessed to the crimes to Oziel. And I think one of the most tragic parts of this whole entire case is that Jerome Oziel actually recorded the conversation he had with Eric, in which they were discussing the crime, and, you know, he confessed a little bit before, but they had gone back inside to kind of record a conversation. And Oziel had actually had a mistress who was also a patient of his, which is very interesting. And he had played that confession tape, I guess you could say, to his mistress, whose name was Judalon Smith, and she also ended up testifying in court as well. This element of the case, the whole mistress and therapist kind of situation, was the part that really made the case like a show, like a reality show, which is very sad because, I mean, there were real victims in this case, and this just kind of distracted from the point that 2 people at the end of the day had actually been murdered, and it was very sad. But yeah, I mean, it's a breach of doctor-patient confidentiality. Whatever a patient tells a doctor has to stay between them. It shouldn't leave. So the fact that he played it to his mistress was just very tragic. And, you know, this was a very public case, so people would have watched it and probably it probably would have caused their opinions on therapists to really skew, and maybe to, if they had a therapist, maybe to trust their therapist a lot less, and that's, you know, obviously not a good thing. So yeah, very, very tragic. So flash forward to 3 years later during the trial. Leslie Abramson represented Eric, and Jill Lansing represented Lyle as their defense. Now, Leslie was very well known for being very powerful during the trial, and I honestly think she was a real inspiration for women, because she, as a female, dominated the courtroom and was relentless, and I think she really displayed the potential females could have in the courtroom, which I think is just great, and I think she's definitely had a major impact on that. And ultimately, the trial was huge, and it was definitely a reality show, I guess you could say. It was the first trial to ever be televised on Court TV. It was this program. So it's safe to say that, many people had their own opinions on the trial because of how broadcast it really was. And to cut the story short, the trial ended in a hung jury, which led to a second trial in 1996, which ultimately led to both brothers being sentenced to life without parole. So I'm going to play some clips, especially more notable, memorable moments of the trial, you could say, and I'm going to basically just deliver my opinion after each clip plays.
Did you do something to your brother?
Yes.
What did you do to your brother?
I took him out to the woods. Whenever I felt, I don't know, I took him out sometimes, and I took a toothbrush also, and I played with Eric in the same way. And I'm sorry.
So, as you can see in the first clip that I played, Lyle is talking about how he kind of mimicked Jose's molestation on himself, which Jose performed when when Lyle was a child, towards Eric. So basically, in short terms, Lyle had molested Eric and was Eric's first molester when they were kids. So it's very interesting to look at the generational patterns of family, I guess, incest. And the defense really tried to blame Jose for the reason why Jose and Kitty were murdered, which, at the end of the day, that's not what the whole proceeding was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be about how the brothers murdered their parents. But, it was an interesting point that I thought was brought up. It really showed, I guess, kind of victimized the brothers. So,
what do you believe was the originating cause of you and your brother ultimately winding up shooting your parents?
Me telling.
You telling what?
Me telling Lyle that, I need to ask him.
Can you answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, it was you telling Lyle what?
That my dad had been molesting me.
So in this video, Eric is clearly very upset, and I had to skip it a little bit because he was so upset. It actually took him I think 30 seconds or something to even say, I think over 30 seconds to even say that he was molested. So clearly he was it was hard for him to say. That's very interesting as well. I definitely don't think he's lying in this, and that's why I say I definitely do believe they were molested. It's just very sad to watch, honestly.
I guess what I just have to say to you is, are you gay?
No. The prosecutor brought that up because I was sexually molested, and he felt in his own thinking that if I was sodomized by my father, that I must have enjoyed it, and therefore I must be gay, and the people that are gay out there must be sexually molested, or they wouldn't be, is what he felt. And it was upsetting to hear, but I'm not gay. A lot of gay people write and feel connected to me.
So in this video, this is an interview for Barbara Walters. This was done, I think, in 1996. I actually heard it was the last time they saw each other for 20-something years, which is crazy. But basically the second prosecutor, his name was Lester Kuriyama, he brought up the fact that the reason why Eric was molested was because he was gay, and that he enjoyed it because he was gay, which I mean, yeah, I mean, it's 2020. We don't think like that anymore, but this was 1989, so that's how they thought back then. Clearly, I don't believe that one bit. I don't think he is gay, and I don't think he was gay or anything. He's married now, so I don't think he was gay. I think the reason why maybe his family or his dad thought he was gay was because he was a little bit more sensitive, and he cried a little bit more than his brother. Doesn't mean anyone's gay, but in his dad's sick thinking, it did. So, yeah, so those were the clips. They're taken from the trial and also from the interview. They all display a very interesting kind of perspective on the whole case. So, this is part 1 finished of the Menendez brothers. In the second video, I wanted to go into the lives of the Menendez brothers, so kind of their childhood, how they grew up. I've been doing a lot of reading, and they both had very, very interesting lives growing up, and I think that'd be a very interesting perspective to look on and to see what really led to this. So yeah, if you would like to see that video, subscribe and turn your notifications on, and leave a comment as well on what you think and your opinion. As I said, I'm not done talking about this yet, so I definitely I don't have a solid opinion on it, but yeah, stay tuned for the next video. Thank you.